Shane Van Gisbergen dominates the weekend at Chicago, while Tyler Reddick is one lap too late once again, and Alex Bowman and Bubba Wallace have more beef. The Chicago Street Course is playing all of its classics. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well on this Sunday night post-Chicago Street edition where the rain held off. We made it a Chicago weekend where no weather affected the racing. It was nice to have that. It was a change of pace for sure. And as soon as the checkered flag flew, the rain did fall and the weather did hit Chicago. It was a race against time, but NASCAR moved the race up to 1 o'clock local time this year. And honestly, it worked out for everyone. You didn't have to worry about racing against the nighttime. You didn't have to worry about the weather. It was really all around, I think, a well-done event this year. And before we get into Shane Van Gisbergen's dominant weekend, if you're new here, of course, hit that subscribe button. Always talking NASCAR on a daily basis here at Breaking Bob. But yes, the Kiwi that 2 years ago introduced himself to the NASCAR world at this very event. If this is the last year they're running the Chicago Street event, he left quite an impression, sweeping the weekend, pole and winning not only the Xfinity race yesterday, pole and winning the Cup race today. The second driver in history to do that behind Kyle Busch. Yeah, Kyle Busch, the guy that also has done the triple sweep in NASCAR, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. And Kyle Busch just went on that streak back in the late 2000s, the 2010s, where he was just dominant. But no. We're talking about present day. We're talking about the dominance of SVG, the New Zealander, the Aussie supercar turned NASCAR now full timer. His second win of the season, and everyone was kind of wondering. There was a little, could he make the playoffs? Could we have more than 16 winners? Well, not going to have to worry about now with his second win of the season after Mexico, now Chicago. He's firmly into the playoffs. Really, he was the base mark for all of the teams today, strategy-wise. Led 26 laps, that really controlled the second part of the race, and everyone looked at him as the controlling car and said, well, we've got to compare ourselves to him. The cars that were out front in the beginning of Stage 3 said, okay, well, SVG's here. You got to do this to keep him behind you, and it was just futile for all of these teams. It really wasn't, and SVG, it really goes to show that his supercar background, it really comes through on these street courses, especially on that second part of the track. I talked about in the video yesterday on the Xfinity recap, those S's, he really gets so much more speed, it seems like, compared to his competitors in the Cup and Xfinity field for whatever reason. And the Cup car, the way it translates with a lot of the supercar background it's made off of, it really translates to the Chicago street course. It's a perfect combination for track, for driver, for car. It works out perfect for SVG for a dominant weekend. Again, leading 26 laps, his second win of the year, and getting Trackhouse back into victory lane. And yes, SVG was probably the fastest car today, but really it was just, he was the fastest car that survived the weekend. You look at the fastest car potentially today was the Stage 1 winner, Michael McDowell, who led 31, 32 laps, and then during a caution had to pit, had throttle issues that ended up putting him 21 laps down, and I believe he finished, 32nd today for Michael McDowell, a day that he really is going to look at and say, what if? And for Spire Motorsports, Michael McDowell is a road course guy, of course. He won at the Indy Road Course a few years ago. Not this year. He was even the guy that was talking coming into the week saying, SVG is everyone's guy that we're looking at, but he's not unbeatable. And Michael McDowell definitely was one of those guys that actually had a chance to beat the Kiwi. Actually had the speed that kept him out in front of that 88 all day, but instead that 71 had a mechanical issue, and it seemed like mechanical issues were the theme for a lot of the contenders. The other one I really want to talk about was William Byron in the 24. Of course, the regular season points leader coming into today, starting at the back of the field, although he was the fastest car in practice yesterday, but then late in the run hit the wall, wrecked his car, and had to come in with a backup to start the day. And before he could even start, during pace laps, had clutch issues that he wasn't even to get really any green flag laps in, went behind the garage and DNF today. And that really a big blow, a tough stretch of runs for the 24 team, the regular season points leader. That was a lot of guys right within arm's reach of him. Not great for the 24 team in a race where I really thought he would be a competitor today with the speed he showed in practice. We never even got to see that. Another contender we never really got to truly see his potential today was Chris Buescher, who on lap 5 had power issues with his car and had a Roush engine technician look behind the hood on that car. They ended up salvaging it for an 18th place finish, but on lap 5, another mechanical issue for a potential favorite, a guy that beat SVG straight up at Watkins Glen last year on that final run. We didn't even get to see Chris Buescher with his probably full potential with those mechanical issues today. Seems like a lot of guys had mechanical issues. You had Denny Hamlin blow an engine in practice on Saturday before he even got his run going. Not sure what the issue is with that, especially in the next gen era where everything is supposedly everything is the same. It's quality control, but quality control issues this weekend at Chicago, it seems, for a lot of the true contenders going into the weekend. So for SVG to be able to survive, really that's just a commitment on him, and also to have the pace he did at the same time. Everything had to go well, and it did. Another contender today, Tyler Reddick, who had to pit late during one of those cautions, had fresh tires on that final run, and was mowing down the competition and was getting close to that top five, got into the top five, got around Denny Hamlin for third, and then that caution comes out with just inside that white flag for SVG. Tyler Reddick, 2 years in a row, where on the last lap, he's going to be thinking, what if? Last year it was a mistake coming into the backstretch where he was hunting down Alex Bowman, tagged the wall, slowed him down. This year, consistency, inconsistency, cautions from NASCAR, whatever you want to call it there, but Tyler Reddick, another year where he had the potential to win at the Chicago Street Course, no dice. And let's talk about those consistency cautions for a second, because I've seen some chatter already on social media post race about it. Cody Ware, I believe he blew a tire on the second to last lap where he went into the tire barrier there. His car got stuck, and NASCAR waited roughly 40 seconds to throw the yellow right after Shane Van Gisbergen took the white flag to make the race official. Then they threw the yellow, and everyone's saying, oh, NASCAR is officiating, NASCAR is officiating. I look at it two different ways. On one point, you want them to be consistent. I think they were consistent today. You look back at the Josh Berry caution where they waited a good 2 laps for the whole field to cycle through. They waited on that. They waited for Ricky Stenhouse to get going until he could pull it behind the wall. They gave drivers every opportunity they could. But at the same time, if a caution's a caution, it doesn't matter if it's 2 laps later. It should be at that moment that car is stuck. It should be a caution. And I get they're giving those drivers ample time, but at what point are you waiting too long to throw that caution? I think that's maybe the argument some people are saying, and they were consistently maybe wrong today. I don't know what the right answer is with race control, but definitely I could see where a lot of people were coming away with that late stage caution or how it was handled with race officiating. But let me know your thoughts down below about that late race caution with Cody Ware and how you thought NASCAR officiated today's race at Chicago. But overall, especially that final portion of the race, the drama, it seemed like it started escalated. It ramped up and toward a crescendo toward the end of that Chicago race today, where you had Tyler Reddick closing late on fresh tires. You had the rain building up the potential there. You had multiple cautions kind of come out. That one caution where they had to get an ambulance across track because of a medical emergency in the infield. I hope whoever was involved in that's okay. That was a scary situation there. But you had just so many different things, a curveball here or there everywhere. But at the same time, finally, we got a dry race for the first time fully for the 3 years in the Chicago race. You got Bubba versus Bowman, of course, the beef there where you've got them in the in-season bracket challenge. Of course, the broadcast wants to make a big hubbub about that, but also them racing each other until Alex Bowman turns Bubba Wallace for the second year in a row. And no confrontation on pit road. They did talk, it looks like, after the race, a little bit more cordial than I think a lot of people expected there. But, once again, those two just seem to find each other at this track. And for one way or another, Alex Bowman comes out on top once again. And then you also had Joey Logano versus Ross Chastain, where Chastain got spun because of a pile or a accordion on one of those restarts there. And he thought it was Joey Logano. I believe it was actually Austin Cindric, who his Penske teammate's the one paying the piper, as Joey Logano then got spun by Ross Chastain in retaliation later in that run. And Logano confronted Ross right after the race and saying, why are you losing your temper? Why do you just randomly lose it like that? And Logano even saying he should be fine. He admitted to wrecking me. But, two guys, they're not going to give an inch there, Joe Logano and Ross Chastain. If those two are going to war, that is nuclear war right there. And the NASCAR drivers, one way or another, will get repercussions from that if that is a long-term battle. But overall, the Chicago street racing produces some of the best road course racing in NASCAR, and it's partially because this next-gen car, I mentioned, is modeled a lot after that Australian Supercars model that do a lot of street racing over there on those street courses. And, if they go to San Diego next year, I hope that the course is going to be as good as the Chicago layout, because it sets up for a lot of great passing opportunities. It also sets up for chaos there. Is you saw in the first year, you had a pile up late in the race that clogged up the entire track. This year, the same thing on lap 7. Carson Hocevar, who was apparently very erratic on those first few laps, tagged the wall, broke a toe link, completely spun out, and then piles up the entire field behind him, takes out multiple cars there. Brad Keselowski, Austin Dillon, Todd Gillen, Will Brown, who flew over here just for this race, gets caught in NASCAR truly in 7 laps there. His full experience as his second year doing an event in NASCAR. Tough for him, but this track truly produces a lot of action, and the sight lines with the Chicago scenery there. It's a beautiful scenery, or a beautiful skyline, I should say, from the air above. It's a great, I think, event for NASCAR. And if this is it for them, 3 years, I think it was a success. I'm glad they finally got a full dry event finally for them. It's a long overdue, and if this is it, San Diego, if that's probably the next street course, which it's rumored to be, they've got some big shoes to fill. But I'm intrigued to see what that looks like. But again, the racing at Chicago, fantastic overall. Before we get out of here, let's look at some of the results. Ty Gibbs second. He is just so close to knocking on the door for one of these wins. He is, again, just like Mexico, right on the heels for Shane Van Gisbergen, and Tyler Reddick was right there, though. Denny Hamlin fourth, Kyle Busch fifth. Somehow, with kind of like Tyler Reddick, put those fresh tires on late after a spin, was able to work his way up through the field. Really, really big day for Kyle Busch coming in after the playoff points. He'd really gone on the wrong trend on the bubble the last few weeks. He really bounced back in a big way this week here in Chicago. AJ Allmendinger sixth. The Dinger looked like he had some speed there early in stage 2 to contend with SVG, but still a solid day for the Kaulig driver. Ryan Preece 7th, Alex Bowman 8th, Austin Hill in 9th place for RCR in that third car. Ross Chastain did bring home 10th. Trackhouse really seems to have their road course program figured out. In the NASCAR bracket bubble, big upset, John Hunter Nemechek 15th, while Chase Elliott 16th. Barely edges out NASCAR's most popular driver. John Hunter is moving on. And Ty Dillon in 20th place, moving on to the Elite 8 as he beats Brad Keselowski. Ty Dillon, the 32 seed, keeps that Cinderella story moving on for Kaulig Racing and that 10-team. Ty Dillon moving on for next week in the NASCAR Bracket Challenge. We've got Sonoma next week in the NASCAR World for Xfinity and Cup. It's going to be a lot of repeat probably of this last week. The guys that were good, SVG, Connor Zilic, a lot of that talk. But Sonoma's going to bring a little bit more of a traditional NASCAR road course style. So intrigued to see what it looks like out west next week. Those poor hauler drivers, they've been all over the Northern American region. It feels like Mexico City, Michigan. Now they're going to California. They got Dover in a couple weeks. They're getting their overtime, their miles on those haulers there. I'll have plenty of coverage leading up to the events through the weekend here at Breaking Bob. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Like this video if you like what you saw. It helps me out a ton. But let me know your thoughts today from the Chicago Street Course. As always, like this video if you like what you saw. Subscribe to Breaking Bob. It helps me out a ton. And comment down below what you thought about today's Chicago Street Course races. SVG becomes the king of Chicago. He ties Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, for wins in Chicago. They both have 4 now. SVG has little fewer opportunities, but still the same amount of wins as the Bears quarterback. But had to get a little dig in there, of course. Subscribe for more Breaking Bob. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.